Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Well, today we're back here at the module, and as I said in last week's video, we're going to be installing this DCC system box that I built 5 years ago now, and I showed you how to do that. I believe it was in videos 107 and 108, and I'll put links to those videos above me here and also on the end page at the very end of this video. So you'll be able to click on those links and go directly to them and see how I went about building this enclosure and how I designed it, all of the thoughts that went into the design. But in just a minute, I'll go over a little bit of that just to refresh you. So let's go ahead and get started with the video. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Okay, let's go over a little bit about the design before we get into the details of installing it here on the layout. And for that, I'm going to bring you in closer so you can see the interior of the unit. Okay, so it's basically just a wooden box, and I built it with scrap lumber that I had left over before the project. It went together fairly quickly and easily. And you can see all the details of that, as I said, in the video. And I put a drop-down plexiglass cover on it here, and that allows me to see what's going on inside at all times if I need to check out the warning lights on the DCC system, etc. And it's also designed, I've got hangers here and here, so that it can be hung from the underside of the layout. So it's designed so that it's going to fit flush with the fascia here on the front, so I'll be able to access it quickly and easily. It's going to be centrally located here on the layout, so I can have wires going out in each direction. No run is going to exceed 30 foot in length, so we're under that magic number. Okay, so what all is in here? Well, I'll have my DCS240 Digitrax system in here, and I also will have a 15 volt, 10 amp power supply. So that gets me plenty of power to power this whole layout, because this particular Digitrax unit is rated for either 5 amps or 8 amps, depending on the power supply that you use with it. Why do I suggest that you use an enclosure like this for your DCC system? Well, there are 3 basic reasons. First off, if you look here on the back of this Digitrax unit, you'll see these massive heat sinks that they have provided. I'll see if you can see those. And that's to cool this unit off. And in all DCC systems that I know of, they either have a fan to help cool them, or they use part of the exterior as a heat sink. So you need to keep that efficient. And if you let dust and cobwebs and all kinds of cat hair, etc., build up on this outside of the case or on the heat sink, then it's not going to be able to do its job, and your unit is going to shut down faster when you start to build up heat. Okay, so that's one reason. Now, a second reason is for safety, because I'm going to have 120 volt power going into this here, and I don't want somebody's kid coming in here, or my dog or a cat or something like that, getting into this and frying themselves on the contacts. Now, on a lot of power supplies, that's not going to be a concern, because you're just going to plug it in and ready to go. But if you're using a power supply like this one here, which is readily available, then you want to have that protected. You don't want people to be able to touch it and light their lights up. The third reason is for cooling. And if you look here on the side, you'll see right here I have a fan built into it. And that fan is located, it's right in here. I don't think you can see it, but you'll see it in the video when I design this. And that fan blows directly on the back of this case, on the heat sinks. So that's going to help keep it cool. So that's another important factor. Keep it cool, keep it clean, keep it safe. And that's why I designed this. And I recommend that even if you're using a power supply that is totally enclosed and nobody can touch the wires, I still recommend it from the standpoint of keeping everything cool and keeping it clean so that the heatsink can do its job. Another item that I have here, you'll see I've got one of these DCC Concepts alpha meters. And the output from the DCC system goes through this and then out to the layout. And that will give me a readout of the volts and the amps being used. So it'll tell me what the voltage of the DCC power bus is going to be, and it will tell me the amperage at any given time that's being used by locomotives and accessories on the layout. So I think this is a great feature. These things are available from DCC Concepts. Check out Iron Planet Hobbies and see if they have them in stock. I find these very, very useful. Also, they can be used with AC, DC, or DCC. So you could actually have one of these set up on your layout to measure the volts and amps of a DC power supply bus that you have. And I might set one of those up. I do have a DC power bus, but I don't have, at this point, I haven't set up one of these alpha meters to be able to monitor that. So I think I might add that this time, because I do have an extra one around here. Also, internally, let me see if I can set this so you can see it. Inside here, right in here, I have a PSX circuit breaker setup. And I've got 4 of these, so it's a PSX4. Now the PSX isn't made any longer. They've now redesigned it, and it's called the PSXX. But at any rate, I got this several years ago, obviously, and installed it. So it's got 4 circuit breakers built in. And so I'll have one circuit breaker for one end of the layout for the Alexander area, one end for the Tinberry area, and another one for the accessory power supply. And then I think I'm going to reserve one of them just to power any staging yards that I add on the layout. So that would take up all 4 of them and use them since I've got them. And again, I went over all that in the design and construction of the box. So please, for more details and to see this better, go back and take a look at that. Also, here on the side, I ran the wires out and into these terminal blocks. So I can make my connections here. I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's PSX 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I can just make my connections with my power bus here on the outside. Makes it quick and easy to get to. Another thing here, and I went over this in the design phase, I have a large cutout in here so that I got good airflow through the box. So the cooling air is blown in here, and it goes through across the DCC system and the power supply, and then comes out over on this side. And then I have a couple of holes, small ones back here in the back, to pass wires through. So let's go ahead and take a look now at how I'm going to install this on the module. Now I've got everything measured out so that it's going to end up being centered on the fascia here on the module. So I'll just be able to take a quick look down here at the fascia, and I'll be able to see what's going on inside the container. Now, for that, I'm going to flip it upside down so that you'll see what I've done here as far as measurements go. So I've got everything marked out here on the piece of plywood. So this is what it looks like upside down. And I just measured out everything here on the piece of plywood. And this is the underside of the piece of plywood that will be the top. So for hanging it in place under the layout, I've used these angles here so you can see it's just galvanized steel, and it's got a couple of screw holes here and a couple of screw holes here. So I've got one on each side, and these are centered, so it's balanced. So when it's hung, it's going to just hang from these supports like that. And I'll show you how that's going to work in a second. And then I'll have a third one here on the rear that's going to be attached to act more as a stabilizer than anything else. And you'll see what I mean here in a minute. If you remember, there is a cross piece here that goes across the layout. So I can't exactly hang this completely from the underside of the plywood. I have to make allowances for the thickness of this cross member. So for that, I've got a couple of wood blocks. And these wood blocks are going to be installed like this here on the underside so that I'll be able to space it out just enough so that the top of the box sits below that cross member under here. Okay, so that's going to look like, see if I can do this without dropping it. So you can see that's how it's going to sit. Right there. That allows for the fascia here, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. The first thing I've got to do in order to prepare it, I've got to screw these in place. So for that, I'm just going to make a couple of pilot holes here to do that, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the screwing. Okay, let's punch a couple of pilot holes here so that we can get this drilled. So I'm going to put pilot holes on the bottom so that I'll be able to work from the top. Like that. And we'll get two over on this side as well. Okay, got that done. Now, let's flip it over and start installing. Okay, so I've got my countersink bit here. So I'm just going to countersink the holes so we'll get a good smooth placement of those screws. Now, screwing these in place is not an easy job, let me tell you, because you have to hold these perfectly in location while working from up here. What I've done to make that easier is I've clamped a piece of plywood in place here on top of the layout, and then I'm going to take these guys and put them down here under the layout where they're going to be, and I'm going to clamp them in place. And that way I'll be able to just drill holes from above and install the screws. So let's do that now. So let's see. Okay, so the holes are there. Now let's install the screws. And for this, I'm using the same Hillman Fasten Tight wood construction screws. They're 6 by 1 5/8 made out of yellow zinc. Okay, so you can see the wood blocks are in place. Now let's put the DCC system box in its spot here. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. So now I've got to make some more holes. So I like using pilot holes. For this, I'm just using, I think these are probably 3/4 inch pan head screws. So I know these are going to hold it in place because these are the ones that I removed when I took it off of the old layout. Okay, so let's get the other side done so it's stable. There we go. So that's going to be good and stable. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to remove this because this has to be installed after the top is installed on the layout because I've got that cross member in the way underneath here, if you remember. So that has to come off, but at least I've got the holes pre-drilled and everything's ready. So the next thing I'm going to do is flip this over and attach it to the top of the baseboard. Well, I flipped it over and I've now clamped it down to the top of the baseboard. So now I can go ahead and add about a zillion screws here on the top to hold this firmly in place. For that, I'm not going to show you the whole operation, just a start and an end. So let's get these out and go to work. So I'm going to work my way around adding screws, every 6 inches or so, just to get a good tight top on the module. Okay, and that takes care of them all. So it's all the way across, all the way around. So now we're ready to do the hang. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the box set up here on a stool and a cardboard box, And that gets it up almost to the point where it's touching the underside of those wood blocks. So I don't have to hold it while I'm trying to screw it in. So let's go ahead and get started installing these screws and get it tightened up. There we go. Let's see if those screws are going to hold it once I take the box out. Okay, that's in there pretty solid. So the fascia will be here, and I'll be able to just access everything without any problem when I need to do wiring or check anything out. Okay, at this point, I need to add the stabilizer on the rear, so let me get that. Okay, so here's the back of the box, and here's that cross member. So what I want to do is attach things like this, and there's not much to grip on there, but I can set it up like that. Okay, that smaller angle wasn't quite long enough, so I went out and found something in the garage. So we're going to attach it here and to the underside of this cross member. I'm going to make a pilot hole so that I can get this installed here. Okay, that's got it. Now we can install the screws. There we go. And then I'm just going to run 2 screws up into this cross member. Okay, now that I've got the box stable, hanging nicely, and you can see it gives me a little bit of a gap here below the fascia so that I can extend my fascia down that far if I want to. But it also allows me to easily get to the piece of plexiglass. Okay, now let's go ahead and get everything installed. So this is the Digitrax DCC system. And on the Digitrax systems, they come with these plug-in terminals. So it's already pre-wired, so all I have to do is plug it in, and it's ready to go. As soon as I add everything here, this wire here feeds into this guy here. Like so. And this goes in here. This is my power supply. Let me get a screwdriver so that I can install that. Okay, so here's the box set up now. I have installed the DCS240 Digitrax command station booster and the power supply here. Again, this is a 15 volt, 10 amp power supply that I'm using, and this DCS240 can be operated at either 5 amps or 8 amps. So I'm feeding it 10 amps, it's going to run at 8 amps without any problem at all. I also have an 8 amp fuse right here, just for extra protection in case something happens and I get a power surge. That will give me a little bit more protection built in. I still have to add a DC power supply externally for the fan, so that's not running yet. And everything else is wired. So the wire here, the power out goes through this wire, goes up into the alpha meter, and then comes back out and goes down to my PSX4. And that'll be used to provide power to all 4 blocks here on the model railroad. And I've covered all of this in the power management video that I previously have done. And if I've got room in the video, I'll add a link to that as well. Otherwise, just go back and look up power management among my videos. And I know I did one on that. So let's go ahead and plug in the power supply and see if it works. I just happen to have an outlet right behind this system. Okay, so everything's on. We've got power. We got track status is okay. The network is okay. I've got it set on HO, so that's somewhere around 14.5 volts, something in that range. And you can see we're putting out 14.53 volts right here. And you can tell it's DCC because it's got a little blue light right here in the O in concepts. And that's a different color depending on whether it's AC, DC, or DCC. So we know it's DCC. So it's 14.55 volts roughly, and we're kicking out about 0.07 amps. So 70 milliamps. So not much being pulled there at all. And I think that's primarily due to the circuit boards here, the PSX circuit boards, pulling a little bit of juice. You can see they've got several LEDs on them, status LEDs. So you can see it's all set up and working and ready to go. So the next thing we'll be doing is connecting the power bus wire for Alexandra and for Tinberry, those two modules, and we'll be installing a LocoNet throttle bus here on the layout, because I still have a number of wired throttles to plug in, and so I'll have several fascia panels for that here on the layout. And I also need a place to plug in my radio receivers, and I'll set those up later on. So that's a wrap for today's video. We've got everything installed here in the box, ready for the power bus to be installed and for the throttle bus to be added, and an accessory bus. So those will be coming in future videos. We'll get that taken care of, and then we'll be able to run trains again here on the model railroad. So until then, have a great weekend and a great week, and I'll see you here with another video soon. Bye now.